Catherine's College, Oxford. Do the mentors want to introduce themselves?
I'm Rumaisa. I'm a second year medical student and I'm at Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford.
Hi, I'm Nikita. I'm a first year French and Linguistics student at Oriel College, Oxford.
Hi, I'm Basma. I'm a first year economics student at Trinity College, Cambridge.
Okay, so we have about an hour in this breakout room, and so we've got plenty of time to go through any submitted questions that you have, as well as kind of dispelling the myths about Oxbridge and focusing on the application process and focusing about student life and along those lines, choosing a college. Just before we get into the submitted questions, I wanted to briefly tackle the misconceptions that you might have about Oxbridge. They were covered very briefly in the introductory meeting that we just had before we split into the breakout rooms. But there are a couple that I think is worth focusing on, just to make sure in linking into what college you want to choose, in differing your college, choosing to study at Oxford or Cambridge from other Russell Group universities, to kind of cement those decisions. So the first one I really want to tackle is that life at Oxbridge is really stressful. This is something that I don't really think is necessarily a misconception. I think you definitely have to work here. And I think anyone who tries to kind of dispel that entirely would be feeding you a false lie, honestly. But the thing is, from my personal experience, the work is manageable as long as you're really on a schedule. And that it's not just stress and it's not just no play. As long as you keep yourself balanced, as long as you manage your time well, and then you're able to find plenty of time to join societies, get involved with your college, get involved in the extracurriculars. And the thing is, you're surrounded by people, all of whom are living similar schedules, and that makes it so much easier. I just want to hand off to the mentors and see what their opinions are on life at Oxbridge being really stressful and how they've personally found their experiences. So if any of you want to take up the mantle and answer this question, if you've got any particular things you want to say, then feel free.
Yeah, I think I agree with kind of, it really requires you to have organization skills. And once you have that, it's not that stressful, but it is easy to, like, sometimes, you know, there can be days when you're not keeping track of everything and then it kind of piles up. But as long as you can like keep your priorities straight, I think it's manageable and it's okay. Yeah, it's also really short term, so it's kind of like you can look forward to the fact that it's ending soon, and I feel like that manages the stress a bit as well.
Okay, I think going on to topic, choosing the course and choosing the college. I think Rainford 6.1 want advice on choosing a college. I think this relates into questions and topics about the course and about the universities. Rumaisa or Nikita, do either of you want to touch on how you managed to choose the college that you ended up at and why?
So the first thing, sorry, Rumaisa.
No, you go ahead.
The first thing I'd say is that if you don't want to, you don't have to choose a college. There is an open application you can do, and that doesn't put you at any disadvantage. But personally, I did choose my college. The first thing to look at is which colleges offer your course. So it does depend on which course you're going for. Because I'm doing French and linguistics, I have a smaller pool of colleges to choose from than, for example, Rumaisa, who does medicine, I imagine. So that was the first thing that helped me narrow it down. The second thing I looked at was location. I wanted to have a college which was central, because I thought that would be more convenient for me. And I also, on the open day, a lot of it is to do with when you go on the open day, it's like how you feel, like the general vibe you get, and whether you think that you'll be able to settle there. So that really helped me choose my college.
Yeah, I didn't go on an open day. I wasn't fully decided on Oxford. Adding on to what Nikita said, one thing I did, which was probably a bit extra, was I made like so obviously first I narrowed it down to the colleges that offered medicine, and then I made a spreadsheet the colleges that included the things I wanted. So if you go on I think it's the Oxford, if you Google Oxford Student Union, they have a website where they like compare the colleges. And then I kind of looked at what my priorities were. So I really wanted an ensuite and also kitchen so I could make my own food. And I would say don't like be too rigid about any kind of like factors you want. Like first I was looking at a central college, but then I found LMH that kind of had everything that I wanted apart from it wasn't central, and I'm really glad I made that choice. So
yeah, I think both Nikita and Rumaisa have touched on really important things here. I think the first one that I want to emphasize on that is if you can and you're able to, do attend the open day. You'll have an opportunity to see all the colleges. They'll be offering tours, there'll be student ambassadors, student mentors, plenty of people you'll be able to talk to about their own personal experiences at each and every college. One more thing that I want to mention is that I don't recommend choosing a college based on, oh, the X amount of people apply to this college and Y amount of people apply to that college, and so I'm more likely to get into this college than that college, because it really doesn't work that way. I mean, in fact, when you go for interviews, I mean, I personally didn't experience this, but plenty of people I was there with and plenty of my friends ended up interviewing at 4 or 5 different colleges, despite the ones that they end up applying to. And the fact that you are likely to get pulled, you could potentially get pulled to different colleges, and that there really is no discrepancy in admissions rate for each and every college. Like you will have heard that obviously some colleges are necessarily more prestigious, like Balliol or Trinity or something like that, as opposed to others. But that relates much more to the funding that they have, or just for how long they've been around and their architecture. It doesn't relate to the chances of you getting in or the quality of your teaching at each college. And there are also other things you can look at. I think Rumaisa really touched upon it. There's the Oxford Student Union. They've got websites comparing each and every college, because the colleges where you'll spend 90% of your living time, 90% of your working time, if you use their library as opposed to the main faculty libraries. And so it's really about how you live and how you want to live. Are facilities like gyms and kitchens more important to you than others? And you might want to apply to certain different colleges. And things like that. Is it important for you to spend your evenings interacting with a lot of people in a big JCR? Is a bar important to you? Are these kinds of things what you're really looking for when you're relaxing in your downtime? These are what you want to look at. Do you want a 24/7 library, or do you work in conventional hours from like 9 to 5 as opposed to at midnight or wherever suits your schedule best? I think from there I want to go into the particular courses and how you choose the course. But I presume if you're in year 12 or year 13, now you will be somewhat finalized on what subjects you want to do. But you might not necessarily have decided, and you might not necessarily have decided on Oxbridge in the first place. And so that is the aim of this presentation. So I just want to touch upon briefly, so we can focus really on the questions that you guys have asked, how and why each of us chose our course. And so I think it'd be good for all of the mentors to answer this question. Basma, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing economics. And basically at A-level, I was kind of doing like maths, physics, and economics. So I had an idea from the subjects I was doing where I was going to go. And I was kind of confused between maths and economics, but I think in the end, I decided to do economics because it was a bit more applied and probably what I wanted to do more in the future anyway. So it's like I got to use my math skills, but also kind of have application for that as well. So yeah, that's why I chose
it. Nikita, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I do French and linguistics. So at A-level, I did English, literature, French, maths, and physics. So I had a pretty broad spectrum to choose from. So I didn't actually end up settling on my course until like the last week of August before year 13. What did eventually sway me was, I've always loved languages, and the Oxford course especially is very focused on literature. And that was something I was really passionate about and I really wanted to pursue. And along with that, the the joint school course, it's very balanced, and there's also the opportunity to like bridge between subjects, which was something I wanted to do.
Rumaisa, would you be able to answer about medicine? And if possible, Will, I think his name is, asked a question about how medicine differs from other Ross Group universities like Cardiff. If there's anything you could touch on in your answer, that'd be fantastic. Oh, sorry, you're muted. There we go. No, we can't hear you at the moment. Is it just me? Can everyone else hear her or not?
No.
Sorry, it's still muted. I think if you're able to take a couple of minutes to sort that out, if you can, I will answer for law. And if not, then just feel free to answer any questions, Rumaisa, by typing in the chat, and hopefully they should all be able to see that. So obviously I applied to study law at Oxford. And I think while the tutors definitely want you to show passion for your chosen subject, they don't expect you to have wanted to know, for instance, you were 5 years old, you wanted to go into the legal profession, or you wanted to be a brain surgeon or anything like that. Sorry, give me 1 second. Just letting Rumaisa know that she can answer the question in the chat, just so that we can get a wide range of subjects. Yeah, and as I was saying, they don't expect you to know exactly what you want to have studied from the start, or from when you started secondary school, or from when you chose your GCSEs. So for example, at A level, I studied maths, further maths, but also history and English lit. And so like, I don't know why I did maths and further maths, honestly, but I kind of chose between those. I decided, you know what, English is very creative, history is quite fact-finding, but none of them are like, they weren't as practical as I wanted them to be. And so I decided to go with law. And it was only in like the summer when I started writing my personal statement that it was law that I decided to choose. And for me, part of the reason I chose, more so when I chosen law, more so the reason I chose Oxford as opposed to Cambridge, is because the application process for law, at least, was less rigorous and the grade requirements a bit lower. So for Oxford, I needed 3 A's, whereas for Cambridge, I needed an A-star AA. And from what I looked up and done my own research on the interview process, which I recommend all of you to do, I'd seen that the Cambridge interview required a bit more pre-knowledge about the law, which I didn't necessarily possess because it wasn't something I studied at A level, whereas Oxford was much more just kind of how you think, critical thinking, and your general knowledge. And so that was how we ended up choosing our courses. Hopefully Rumaisa will be able to touch on medicine and type an answer in the chat if she is able to. So now I want to go on to answering. I mean, it seems like you guys do have quite a lot of questions. So I think we will actually focus on your submitted questions. And the next one we've got is, how does pooling work at Oxford and Cambridge? Before getting into how it works generally, Nikita or Basma, will either of you pool to any other colleges during your interviews?
So at Cambridge, it's slightly different to Oxford, I think, in that during the interviews, you're not actually pooled. Like, you do the interview at the college that you apply at, and that's it. And then afterwards, your application, if that college is like, you're good, but we don't have space for you, they put you into a winter pool and your applications go in there, and then all the other colleges can come and like pick you out if they want you. So you don't actually do the interview at more than one college.
Yeah, I think at Oxford, because generally the interviews take place over a number of days, there is the opportunity for you to be interviewed at another college. That didn't personally happen to me. I had all my interviews at Oriel, but I know of people who they had a set of interviews at the college they applied to, and then they had another set of interviews at a different college who had like a look at their profile provided by the first college and thought, we want to interview this person, and then they ended up being accepted by the second college. So
yeah, I think I can't necessarily speak to Cambridge, but I can speak to Oxford. when you're at your interviews, you may have necessarily applied to a certain college, and that there will be probably 100% chance that you will, up to nearly 100% chance that your first interview will be at the college that you applied to. And you may have a course of 2 or 3 interviews throughout it, and they may all be at the college you applied to. For me, that was certainly the case. But I know that with the people who are here with me doing my course, they weren't necessarily the same. And so a part of the reason for pooling and how pooling works is if one college is particularly oversubscribed than another. So particularly with my year with law, we had, I think, hundreds of people applied to oversubscribe to Worcester College. And so a lot of them ended up taking interviews at St. Catherine's throughout the process. You may have sat both your initial interviews or the first 3 of your initial interviews and you think you're done. But then while you're there, they'll constantly make sure you have a board you can check to see if you have any other interviews, any other colleges. They really aren't clear. I mean, because it varies from college to college, what you can read into being pulled to another college. Being pulled to another college might just be because they're oversubscribed with interviews and they're poor on a time schedule, and the tutors are really trying to debate their decisions. It might be that they're oversubscribed. It might be that they are considering you for another college, but you honestly don't really think you can read into any of it. Being pulled isn't necessarily a good sign, and being pulled isn't necessarily a bad sign. It honestly comes down very much to the individual college, to the individual university, and that might not be the most helpful, but that's essentially how pooling works, and there isn't really anything you can read too much into it. Rumaisa, have you managed to fix the microphone?
Sorry, is that working now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Shall I answer the question from before?
Yeah, please do.
So how I picked medicine, I kind of went into A-levels thinking about medicine as an option. So I picked biology and chemistry. So, but I think it was definitely going to open days for different universities that helped me decide between like medicine and like biological sciences or things like that. So yeah, definitely recommend open days. And for Will's question, how does Oxford differ from other Russell Group unis? I didn't apply to Cardiff, but I think what definitely sets Oxford apart is it's a traditional course. Probably a term you've heard before, that the first 3 years are kind of solely science-based. So we'll be learning kind of in depth about like how like cells and the body systems work, and then kind of like the pathology of them. And then the final 3 years are like fully clinical based. Mostly you'll still have lectures, but you'll mostly be in hospitals. One thing to say that the pre-clinical years it's not like they don't have any clinical contact. In first and second year, we have the patient doctor course, which is we have 5 or 6 GP visits across those 2 years. And it is good for getting a taster of like how clinical medicine might be. And also something I'd say is that even though we kind of have this traditional label, a lot of integrated unis might also not have that much clinical contact in the first couple of years. So yeah, but if clinical contact is something that's important to you, then maybe isn't the best. But I do enjoy kind of learning about like how exactly everything works before being thrown into the deep end.
Thank you. If anyone has any follow-up questions to the ones we've answered, please do continue to submit them in the chat and the form, and we'll get to them. But for the moment, I really want to focus a bit more on the application process itself, because I think learning about student life here, learning about your course in particular, is something that you'll need to do your individual research on when you're deciding on what college to choose, when you're deciding on which university is more important to you. And so I really want to focus on the interviews, because if you're fortunate, a good number of you, if you do end up applying, will likely get to interview if your application is strong. And so I just want to focus on what our personal experiences were like, because I feel like we do have a broad range of subjects in this breakout room, with economics, medicine, law, linguistics. And so I think our interview experiences will all have been different, and hopefully we can give you guys some tips and just tell you what they were like, so you know briefly what to expect and you can note anything down, even though it is quite far down the line, just so you have an idea of going into it, what you can expect. Nikita, would you be able to start for us?
Yeah, so I had two interviews, one for French and one for linguistics. For the French one, generally for language interviews, if it's a language you'll already have an A-level or IB in, you get given a text like half an hour before to have a look at. This can be like either a bit of literature or like prose poetry, and then in the interview, the main bulk of the time is spent going through that text, just talking about your thoughts on it, and it's just discussion with the tutor. And then at the end of the interview, they might ask you a couple of questions about your personal statement, and I had like a 5-minute conversation in the target language, but it wasn't, the topic matters were very like relaxed. So that's definitely not the main bulk of the interview. The main bulk of the interview is talking about the prepared text. And then for the linguistics interview, I had no preparation for that. I just went in and I was given like an exercise sheet of like linguistic data. And then I was given a couple of minutes to look over that. And then we had a discussion. And then afterwards, I was asked a couple of questions about my personal statement again. And yeah, that was it.
Basma, would you be able to take the next answer?
Yeah. So I only had one interview, and it was just at my college. And there were kind of like two interviewers. I also had some pre-reading to do beforehand. So I had an hour to do the reading. And then my interview was kind of split into discussing that. So like the first question they asked, like just to kind of ease you in, was roughly like, why do you want to do it? And then it was like discussing the reading. And then there was like kind of a more mathematical like question and working through it on a whiteboard. But it was like around 20 minutes, and it was kind of just like discussing with those two aspects.
Rumaisa?
Yeah, so I had, I think how medicine does things differently to a lot of how a lot of other subjects do it, is that you are definitely going to be pulled. So you will interview at 2 colleges, and you'll know what colleges those are. And you will be given like a weekend to come down, like 2 days. Whereas I know like other people in other subjects have like been asked to come down, told to stay, and then ended up staying for a week and then only do 1 interview. I did 5 interviews, 2 at LMH and 3 at Merton. So the LMH, they did it kind of differently. Merton's were definitely kind of like had themes. So there was one that was kind of around my personal statement and like medical ethics, that kind of thing, as well as some chemistry brought into it. So it was still quite science-based. One of them was very heavily based on A-level chemistry and biology, and that is like one tip I'd give, to kind of know the syllabus as far as you've done it, like inside out. Because but also don't be worried if you've not covered something that comes up in the interviews. In one of my interviews, I was asked about a DNA sequencing technique that I like had not heard of, so I couldn't answer that question at all. But if I just told the interviewer that, and it was completely fine. And also like definitely like know a little bit about whatever you mentioned in your personal statement. And yeah.
Thank you. I'll get on to briefly answering about my experience. Just been told that we'll be closing the breakout rooms at 10:45. So if there are any particular pressing questions that anyone wants to ask, it'd be preferable to probably put them in the chat as opposed to the Google form, because we get updated on the Google form live as they come in. So it might take a few minutes for us to receive it. So if you want it answered instantly, it's probably best to put it in the chat. With my interview experience, it was broadly similar to Nikita and Basma's, very different to medicine. But I think that just comes with the trend of sciences versus humanities. I had 2 interviews, both of which were at my college, St. Catherine's. And I think the common trend, at least particularly with the humanities interviews, is you get something to look at beforehand or during. So I got, similarly to Nikita, I had a text 30 minutes to look at beforehand. For me, it was a piece of statute. I think it was like the Land Law Act of 1960 or something like that, and a fictional scenario where they talk about someone staying in a hotel, or someone shooting someone else or something, like a whole fictional scenario they've made up, and they give you 30 minutes to look through the statute, and then they come in and they quiz me, at least, and they ask me how I think I'd apply it, what do I think X word meant, what do I think Y meant, did I think this was morally justified, things like that. And they really just want to see where your train of thought is leading, whether you're able to kind of critically analyze the information that you have at hand. I did prepare to be asked about my personal statement, and then it didn't come up at all. But I'm not telling you not to prepare for it. I'm just saying it's very variable depending on the subject. I think with something particularly like English, at least from what I've heard, then the entire interview can be based on your personal statement, at least. Okay, what is the social atmosphere like? Do any of you three have anything particular you want to highlight on your experiences at your individual colleges? Basma, would you be able to give us an idea of Cambridge first, and then we can all kind of touch upon Oxford?
Okay, so I think first of all, like, this year has been very different to any normal year would, and it's my first year at university, so I don't know how like normal of a response this is, but my college is quite, I'm lucky in the fact that it's quite large. So even though we've kind of had to be sort of a bit in lockdown and not really been able to meet as many people from other colleges as we could, there's around like 180 people in the year, so you have that group of people that you can get to know as well. And I think it was quite like a friendly and nice and welcoming atmosphere. Like, it wasn't that intimidating, and everybody at the end of the day is like doing quite a academically rigorous course, right? So there's a lot in common with people in that case. Like, they're all really passionate about something. So yeah.
Okay. I think I'm briefly going to touch on my experience. I just want to emphasize that Nikita and Rumaisa's experience will consequently differ as well, because the social atmosphere is very, very dependent on the college you choose. We're a very, very collegiate university. Colleges aren't like a tiny little building. They're like big grounds with like fields, with JCRs, with bars, with facilities, with gyms, with kitchens, with different staircases. And so every college can have a particularly different atmosphere. Mine, particularly at St. Catherine's, for example, we've got a really large gym and a really nice like field out the back. So you kind of big sports culture. It's very sporty in particular. The JCR is known for being really massive. And so we'll have big socials called ENSES, or parties or bops, every 2 weeks, with an open bar that will go on to like 3, 4 a.m. in the mornings. And that's kind of something that everyone uses to like relax, and they'll facilitate for non-drinkers as well in a different type of event. And because the JCR is so huge, a lot of the social atmosphere is centered around the JCR, and we will have people in there all day playing table tennis or pool or something in their downtime or in their breaks. And so as a result, the social atmosphere is much more communal than necessarily just within your staircase or within your flat. Not necessarily the case this year because we had to be in households and things, but that is generally what you can expect at the college that I was at. If Nikita or Rumaisa are briefly able to touch on their experiences, and also in doing that, hopefully answer Will's question about, is Oxford a nice place to live, which it is.
Yeah, sure. So Oriel is comparatively quite small. We have about 90 students per year. Although the grounds themselves are quite big. And obviously this year's been a bit different. So we've been put into households, but I've still found that we've been able to organize events to get to know people. And because a lot of the colleges have things called quads, which are kind of, so they're outside spaces and surrounded by buildings. So it's a really nice place to meet up with people and get to know people. But yeah, I'm looking forward to life hopefully getting back to normal so we can kind of get to know even more people. And yeah, just answering Will's question, yes, it is definitely a really nice place to live. I found just being able to like go out on a walk if I'm feeling particularly stressed is really nice. Just being able to look at all the buildings and all the there's lots of different parks as well, and yeah, there's just a lot of pretty things to look at.
Yeah, I'd like agree, because I'm second year. I've kind of had an experience of normal Oxford. And yeah, I'd agree with what Khushal said. Like in terms of social life, it's very college based. So we have the BOPs, and yeah, there is open bar, but it's also like you don't have to drink. There's a lot of non-drinking activities, like you said, and we do, our college puts on welfare teas. They're quite a nice place, you know, free snacks, and after pops as well. And there's a lot of activities within college, and definitely when you join, the older years will put a lot of effort in to make freshers feel welcome and kind of accepted into the social life.
Thank you. We've got 2 minutes until the room closes. So if any of you have any last particular remarks you want to make about your experiences, about any like crucial last minute advice that you would give to any of the students, please feel free to volunteer that information.
I'd say just go for it. You never know if you don't apply, and yeah, don't feel as if you have anything to lose. Just put together the strongest application you can, and we're sure you'll go very far.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely say the same thing. I mean, honestly, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. Yeah, it may take up a bit of your time. You may feel slightly more stressed, but it all occurs within the early months of year 13. So it's not going to detract from your A-level efforts at all. And secondly, worst case scenario, you come out of it and you've learned more about the subject that you've chosen to do at university already. You advance your knowledge and you just become richer as a person. You've been inspired to pursue extracurriculars. And best case scenario, you manage to come here and study about a subject you're passionate about and that you enjoy. And yeah, I think that's really the most important thing. I just want to finish by briefly saying that no matter which one you choose, you'll have a fantastic time if you manage to make it here. And just good luck to absolutely all of you in the application process. Hopefully this event has been helpful. Definitely check out, you'll have 10 minutes at the end where we'll explain the charities that we're involved with and how we can help you all. And so definitely get involved in taking a look at those. Thank you.
Again, can we ask you, if you are a student or a teacher, can you just turn off your camera and your mic, because we will begin recording again in just a moment.